What is good, Fantasyland? Welcome to the Draft Room. I'm JD, the Draft Room Baller, and I'm with my boy Dave Terpioli. You know him as Dave Terp on the X Machine from the FFPC High Stakes Streets, co-host of FFPC Live, and a proud, as you guys can see, Philly and Eagles guy.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna smash the 125 buy-in BBT on FFPC today, 300,000 up top. So we're gonna get into the goods. I'm gonna pick Dave's brains a bit just based on his experience. He's done a lot of live stream drafts. They observe a lot of high stakes drafters, some of the biggest in the game. So as we're building our $300,000 winner, we're gonna look at some other goodness in Fantasyland to help you smash your draft. So let's get right to it. All right, Dave. So we pulled. There she is. There's my lady. There's my lady telling us it's time to play. Sound. It's like my mother. You know, after I finish eating, she lets me go play outside now. You know, I can go play with the boys.
Look at this. We're starting off with a little Bijan starting off.
So I kind of feel like we have to take Chase here. No.
I agree. I think it's pretty simple. Click the button.
Let's do it. Brother. Let's do it. I mean, that you know what, I was just about to say how the 2 spot, I think both of us reacted the same way in the sense that we kind of prefer being at the back end of some of these drafts, but every 100%. Once in a while you get a little crumb, right? Even from the 2 spot.
Exactly. I mean, when you're talking about Ja'Marr Chase, I mean, he's pretty much going 1 in all these drafts. So, I mean, if he falls a little bit, you almost have to take him because your rosters are going to be different. So, you want to try to be a little bit different in this contest, and getting Chase anywhere past the first pick is a gift and something I feel like you have to do no matter what your plan is going in.
Totally. And that's why I always say, man, you don't want to be too sturdy with your plan as you go in. You kind of want to be able to be flexible. You've got all your tools and, you know, the different builds. You've got an idea of players. And we'll talk, like, I'll get some players from Dave that maybe he's drafting more recently versus, I know for myself, there's always guys that as the off season goes, as draft season builds, there's guys that you draft less of, there's guys you draft more of. So we'll look at that today, but let's start it off. Since we have a few picks before it comes back to us, you do, like I said earlier, you witness a lot of these drafts. I mean, obviously you drive yourself in the FFPC, the high stakes streets, yeah. But you see a lot of drafts, a lot of these big names that we know in the high stakes streets. What's something macro level right now that you're seeing in the draft rooms, whether it's a trend or something interesting that you've noticed lately? What's something you can share with the audience?
2 things that I've seen recently is, number one, a little bit of a fall for Justin Jefferson. I don't really understand why. To me, he's in consideration for the top 3 pick. He would somebody that if Ja'Marr Chase would have went number 1, we would have probably had a conversation about tonight, in my opinion. And also Saquon Barkley's been falling a lot. You know, people are worried about the workload another year after, you know, the perfect season that he had last year. Can he replicate it? It's definitely a worry. You're seeing Jahmyr Gibbs move up ahead of him in a lot of these drafts. They're the 2 things first round that I've seen, like, that, you know, we'll start getting into the fun stuff here eventually, but early on, like, they're the 2 guys. Brock Bowers is all over the first round. I mean, I've seen him go as high as, you know, the first pick, and I've seen him fall as low as the 110. So they're the 3 guys. The rest of those guys are pretty much staying where they're staying. Bijan usually doesn't get outside the top 3. Ja'Marr Chase never gets out to the top 3. You know, Gibbs is pretty much stuck in that top 6. Malik Neighbors is a little high in this draft. I mean, not saying I don't like the player, but still, you know, a little high, all things considered, ahead of Jefferson, ahead of Lamb, you know, ahead of, like, McBride, McCaffrey, guys like that, who I personally might like a little bit better. But overall, I mean, the first round has been pretty self-explanatory, like it is almost every year.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have. It's funny, you talk about Jefferson, and I found that a lot this year, and I think that's why I keep drafting him, is he falls in places, you know. For me, Chase, Jefferson, and Lamb are the first tier for me. And then there's kind of like a second tier with, you know, you talked about Neighbors, you've got BTJ, Amon-Ra, Puka. There's someone else I'm missing in there.
St. Brown, Nico.
St. Brown. Yeah, Nico Collins. That's the other one I was thinking about. I kind of have all those guys in a flat tier, and it just depends on, kind of how the board is playing out. Brian Thomas, I found, was kind of creeping in closer to those top three guys, and now I feel like I constantly see him on the back end. Do you think that's because of people being afraid of Hunter coming in and how much of his share he's going to take, or what do you think that's all about?
100%. I mean, people are just worried about Travis Hunter coming in there. Is Trevor Lawrence finally going to take that next step? The new offensive coordinator, obviously the coach, Liam Cohen, is something that, from fantasy perspective, we love. We saw what he did in Tampa Bay, but there's still worries that are attached to it. So to me, it's, Brian Thomas is one of my favorite receivers this year. I would take him as high as probably the 1.8, 1.9 range, all things considered. But he's been falling a little bit in drafts too, and that's something I love right now because, like I always say, like there's good pockets to draft. Like Rashee Rice, right now, if you're a Rashee Rice guy, you want to get in drafts because you're getting him at a price that is ridiculous. So you got to take shots with that. So Brian Thomas is starting to fall a little bit. I don't think there'll ever be a case where he gets moved up anymore. So to me, it'd be a good time for to get a little exposure to him because he's been all over the second round the last couple drafts I've seen.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Rice. I'm in a it's a bunch of guys I usually do play dynasty with. There's always the one guy that just wants to be drafting all the time. So he's like, let's do a redraft really quick on sleepers. So it's like a start 2 tight end, start 3 receivers, super flex, all that fun stuff. And I just took as my tight end 1, I got Travis Kelce at 6, or sorry, what is this? 5, like 5'8", around there, 5'9". And then he took Rashee Rice right after with Worthy still on the board. I found that kind of interesting.
I 100% agree. I mean, Worthy is another guy. Like if you're a Worthy supporter like myself, it's tough to be excited about him right this second because he's starting to skyrocket up draft boards when he fell, obviously, but before the Rice potential suspension. This is an easy pick to me. I don't think it's even a question, but that's up to you. We're on the same team here.
I'm totally with you, man. The team I'm talking to you about, I actually took him in the 3rd round. I took Gibbs first, then I went Collins and AJ Brown. AJ Brown to me belongs with those guys in that tier, that second. But he's like the last one, so you can always usually get him.
I feel like I keep missing him by a pick, and it's very, very frustrating. But we're not missing him today. That's a great start. With
Strong start,
Brown, and also a start that probably not anybody has. Which is wow, Amari and Hampton. We're back.
So we're back. I kind of like going with, the nice thing right now is we're pre-recording this, trying something a little different so we can talk all we want about players and stuff. Yeah. I kind of like Chase Brown here. He's someone that anytime I go to click, he's already gone. He plays with our Chase stack. Who else do you like in this pick right here?
To me, it would be Chase. Chase Brown. I love that man, and I loved him last year. He won me a lot of money. So to me, I'm perfectly okay with that. The only other guys I would consider are Tyreek and Garrett Wilson, but I'm perfectly good clicking the Chase Brown button and let's go.
All right, let's do Chase Brown. I like the two. I like Garrett Wilson for sure. Tyreek, it's hard for me to click on just because of last year. Maybe that's recency bias, and maybe I'll pay for it. But that Miami Dolphins offense, man, it just rubbed me the wrong way last year. As is, I'm sure, with a lot of fantasy land. And again, maybe that's a fault avoiding them this year. I'm not completely avoiding them, but it just worries me. Especially, I have quite a bit of Tyreek in Dynasty, so I'm trying to hedge my Tyreek Hill Dynasty.
That's fair. You don't want to get too overexposed to a player. It's definitely a mistake that fantasy players sometimes do. They just fall in love with somebody, and we've seen it over the years of guys that have been like the breakout stars that get moved up draft boards and then just totally flop. We see it every year, and we're going to see it again. It's just a question of who that guy is going to be, and hopefully you don't fall into that trap.
Anything else that stands out? We've got Josh Allen coming off the board early 3rd to the same team that went Saquon, Kittle first. Otherwise, I think it's pretty chalk. McBride, I think may have mentioned when you were talking about Bowers, but McBride has kind of snuck into the back end of that first round in some of these drafts.
Nothing crazy that I've seen so far. Josh Allen's a little early for me. I think quarterback should be starting to move at the end of the 3rd, early 4th. That's where I think they should go. I think there's obviously we talk about some of the quarterbacks that are being drafted. There's a clear-cut 5 in my opinion, and then kind of a little bit of a drop-off in tier till when you get to like the Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, and everybody else type of situation. And there's a ton. Quarterback is extremely deep. It's really, really hard. Not this year. I don't know about you because you do a ton of these too. But with me, to just not punt quarterback, but just wait and take the guys like Fields and Prescott and JJ McCarthy and Brock Purdy and all those guys, Trevor Lawrence, guys like that, and just build a 3-man just hammer when you're just stacking up at the other positions. But then also you get a little worried because we all know what Josh Allen can do. We all know what Jaden Daniels can do. Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts. Why am I drawing a blank on the other guy? Lamar Jackson. How do I forget him? I mean, you're talking about, it's really hard to pass on those guys, but it all comes down to value, where they fall, and where your team construction looks like, because that's what makes the most sense in these drafts. You don't want to get too cute and push guys up too far and then, get trapped into a player that you really don't want.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, as much as we know there's that depth at the quarterback position, and it gives you that as kind of a safety net, it is a little harder, especially when you see these guys go off the board. For me, it's when Jalen Hurts was kind of going in that 4th, 5th round, and he was kind of the last guy in that range. I've even taken him because he's gone after Burrow. So for me, that's like a huge value. I'm going to take him every time. And then that kind of changes my build. I saw Mahomes was in a draft I was doing, and he was falling, and I couldn't resist. I ended up taking him and Kelce. So for me, those first guys is usually if I'm seeing a value, or if I just walk into a stack, like I've got a couple Lamar, Derrick Henry builds, like that kind of thing. But I really like the back end of the quarterback room this year. And like you said, smashing 3 of them and the tight end is very similar. I find you can definitely wait and then get 3 or 4 of them and still feel strong about your team, especially if you went yellow and green, in those earlier rounds.
1,000%. I mean, like I said, there's a ton of tight ends that I like, a ton of quarterbacks I like, and obviously the top heavy guys are worth the price of admission. There's a lot of depth at both positions, especially in best ball, because one thing we love about best ball is there's no clicking the button. We don't got to worry about who we're starting between Dalton Kincaid and Jake Ferguson. We're just, hoping whoever scores the most points hits our lineup. That's all we care about. Maybe both of them do. In best ball, it's a little different because you can just draft as many of these guys as possible. One of them hits, and you're sitting pretty. So, to me, we got a lot of good stuff about to happen for us, and I really like what's going on right now.
Yeah, this is one of these where, as much as we talk about these late quarterbacks, we've got 2 stackable top receivers here, and there's a really good chance we get our crack at one of these quarterbacks falling to us here.
It really just comes down to which one we're going to get. I don't think there's any way that one possibly goes here. This guy might play a little Russian roulette because he knows if he actually is paying attention what our roster construction is, and that we're probably going to take one. So he could pass on Burrow here. I'm so used to talking in code because everything's live, and I'm like, oh, somebody's watching me. Yes, and it happens on these shows all the time. Like, you got 1 or 2 people watching, and they're like Snipe City. So they're that pretty much guarantees we're going to get one. Because Josh Allen, I would think, you never know. I've seen wacky drafts where people take
same
in the first 4 rounds.
So I feel like when you've got a stack like that falling in your lap, it's really hard to pass, because for your top guys to hit that ceiling, you're going to need that quarterback to really perform. 100%. Is there a scenario where you pass on one of these guys here?
No, I don't see there being any scenario. I mean, this is kind of like we talked about. We prefer to be at the end. This, to me, I like some of these players, but it's a little bit of a stale section to where, I like these guys, but I also like the guys that are going to be coming back to us. So, let's just say we didn't take Jalen Hurts or we didn't take Joe Burrow. Would we really be excited about our team if we had, knowing that, here comes Mike Evans, so that's not really somebody. The question just comes down, is there one we want more than the other?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So we have 2 Bengals, obviously, between Chase Brown and Chase, and then
Burrow makes more sense.
Right? As much as I like Hurts ahead of Burrow, if I'm just looking in a vacuum, I feel like because we have the 2 Bengals, it's kind of hard to pass on Burrow here.
I 100% agree, but I also think that I can't say there's no way that the first guy's taking him, but is there anybody that's here that you think is worth pushing Burrow one more round?
I was going to say, one thing I really like doing, and you can ask Dan about this, is I like having the decision made for me. I don't think this guy's going to take Hurts and Burrow. So we can easily take a player right now and add to the receiving room. I mean, we can go Tet here if you like that.
I like Tet. I like DJ Moore. I'm fine with any of the running backs. After that, I would probably take the quarterback. But yeah, I'm good taking Ted here if you're good with it.
All right, let's do Ted, and then let's see
We're
what
gonna
comes
get
back to
one.
us.
We're gonna get one. It's just a question of which one. And
Exactly.
if it's not Burrow, I don't see there being any world where he takes Burrow. If he takes him, then he takes him.
He might not take either. He might take, he might pass completely on quarterback, which it looks like he might. He's going a robust RB build here.
A fun thing would be not that we would ever do it because I know I don't do this, and I'm pretty sure you don't do this. But let's just say we took Burrow or Hurts there, so Burrow's going to be the pick here, right?
Yeah.
No questions. Yeah, great value for Hurts though.
Yes. And that's what I was saying. When
So,
he falls in the fifth, it's hard to not take him.
is there ever a world where you double tap Hurts and Burrow and just stop at QB, or is that too risky? I don't
It's
do it.
Put it this way, it didn't even cross my mind until you just said it. And I'm thinking like, I don't know. For me, when you do that, you're killing your ceiling at any other position because
Correct.
you're telling the story that the first guy you take is going to basically produce for you most weeks, if not every week that he's on the field. That's kind of you're always looking at that ceiling story or narrative that you're building in your head as you build these teams. So if you take both there, you're kind of you're nipping at your own at your own heels, and you're really capping your ceiling, in my opinion. DJ Moore is the guy you mentioned. I feel kind of like I'm on an island right now with DJ Moore. I feel like a lot of people are either not on DJ Moore, or they're maybe more on Odunze, which for me, I kind of like all the pieces in Chicago. I don't really know how it's going to play out. So just depending on my builds, I'm trying to sprinkle them in here and there.
As many as you can.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you there. Try to get as many pieces as possible because that's a team that I feel like you want to get as many options as possible because it's an explosive team, and we know that we just try. The ceiling is all we care about in best ball. Obviously, you need guys that hit your roster every week, and all that stuff's important. But when it comes down to the final 3 weeks, you want that guy that's going to carry you. I'm curious on. I asked this question a lot on our show. Where do you stand on Sam LaPorta?
So he's an interesting guy in the sense that he obviously had a huge rookie season, and then kind of disappointed a bit, and then really kind of ramped back up in the second half of last year with Detroit. He's still in a good offense. They lose Ben Johnson, so that brings up kind of that same Chicago. I don't think it's as intense as the Chicago situation because it's one of those where, don't fix what's not broken type of approach is probably what they're doing in Detroit. But at the same time, you do lose your OC in Ben Johnson, who's like a pretty creative mind. They lose their DC. So there's still a lot of change in the coaching staff in Detroit. So it does leave the door open for maybe something we haven't seen, or maybe some changes in the rankings when it comes to target share for that offense. So because we've seen it from LaPorta, I'm not going to completely avoid him because he does offer that potential ceiling, but he's not someone I'm going to lean into in this range. I find like now I'm probably more willing to draft Kelce, in this range, like not necessarily like this is probably the closest I've seen him actually to TJ Hawk and LaPorta, to be honest. But I think that's probably going to keep building with the Rashee Rice news. And then you've got, the Travis Kelce with his new long hair on the field as a married man. People are just falling back in love. He looks like he's kind of in shape, like he's back better than ever. And you've got Andy Reid like at the podium talking, all sweet nothings about him. So I think that he's probably going to end up in this range. Do you think he passes or jumps TJ Hawk and LaPorta with Travis Kelce?
I don't think so. I think like you said, tight ends are starting to move up draft boards. For a while there, they were in like the 6th, 7th range. Now they're obviously with the tight end premium, they're starting to move up more. I think there's a chance Kelce gets up. Those 3 guys are very similar to me. There's a big drop off after George Kittle. There's obviously a ton of tight ends that we like, but after that Kittle tier, it's a big drop off because they all have questions. I mean, Hockenson, I love him. I draft him a ton, but I mean, we're all betting on JJ McCarthy. That's a big question right now. Probably the biggest question in fantasy football, in my opinion. Travis Kelce is he dust now? Is he just an average football player who's going to be out there, have a couple spike weeks, but most of the time just be like he was last year, which was okay. And then you got Sam LaPorta, who might be probably not might be. He's definitely the 4th option on that team, behind St. Brown, behind Gibbs, behind Jamison Williams. And like you said, no offensive coordinator, you don't know. So there's a lot of questions with all those three guys that I'd say Hockenson's probably my favorite out of all of them, but I'll mix in Kelce. Probably won't take that much LaPorta though.
Yeah, Hawk is definitely my favorite out of those three. I mean, just like you said, the offense. Who was I kind of like what he did though from the 9 spot Cowboys getting Rice, Kelce, and Mahomes. I mean, I don't know. I would have probably wished that Worthy felt to me. I'm surprised that Rice is going that close to Worthy, to be honest, when we know that Rice is probably missing at least 4 games. So that's kind of odd to me, but I like the effort getting the Kelce Mahomes stack.
I agree. I mean, that's definitely a stack that I think is being undervalued this year. Patrick Mahomes is definitely one of my favorite quarterbacks to draft. After the top guys, I mean, he was going in the 7th round a little bit more comfortably, so he's moving up. No, I mean, Evan Ingram's probably my leader in the clubhouse, but I could be probably talked into anybody right now.
Yeah, Ingram's been growing on me. I find myself. I was actually contemplating between him and Kelce when I took Kelce. You should see some of the guys. Like Kincaid went before Kelce. I couldn't believe it in a two tight end. But Ingram, when you think about him in Jacksonville, I mean, he was just getting peppered with targets, double digits, and I could totally see that happening. You keep seeing the Joker role, so I don't mind if you want to go Ingram here. This is kind of a range for me that's a little odd. Like there's guys that I have been hammering, like the Olaves. I sprinkle in some Odunze. Now Juwan's got the issue, but Jennings was a guy I kind of like in this range. But you don't feel like super great about a lot of these guys.
I don't draft Chris Godwin, so he doesn't do it for me. I mean, Judkins I liked before everything happened, but there's so much unknown there. You're not taking him anywhere. And like everybody else on this list, like Mark Andrews is a guy that I like. Njoku, obviously. I feel like that could give us a positional advantage right here. But I'm good with pretty much any of those 4 guys. I mean, I'm not a Godwin drafter, but if you want to push me out of there, I'm more than.
No, I'm Godwin is hard for me to get on. There's just he's not even on the field right now. There's just too many factors there. Ibuka coming in. And Njoku's a guy I draft often just because we already have a quarterback and a tight end. I almost prefer going either running back or receiver here. Olave is a guy that I click often here. I think he's a huge value, so I don't mind adding him, obviously.
Let's do it. I'm go with Olave.
All right, let's do it. So as a 4th receiver, the Saints is actually when Mason Spain was on, we talked about underrated offenses, and I don't know if you agree or not, but I find the Saints are an offense that offer nice value as well as the Colts. I find like they've got weapons.
I agree totally, especially with the Saints. Like the Colts, I agree with too. I've talked about the Colts extensively. When obviously with Daniel Jones as the quarterback, which is scary to say out loud. Not Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is not somebody that anybody wants to see running the team because that pretty much kills all value of everybody. And not that Daniel Jones is some superstar, but at least we know he can most of the time throw the football. We're gambling, but that's just what we do. But with the Saints, what if Tyler Shough is knockoff Bo Nix? What if he is, Kellen Moore? We know up until last year he likes to throw the football. And, yeah, I know Spencer Rattler's there, and you're going to see all the stuff about how there's a competition. I don't think there's a competition. I think Tyler Shough's going to get the job and win the job and be the guy. And all these guys are being drafted. Obviously, Olave, people were worried about the concussions. Kamara, everybody keeps saying it's going to break down. He just figures out a way to not break down. Shaheed, who was one of the best draft picks last year until he got hurt. Juwan Johnson, who's a guy that I've been drafting a ton. We don't got to worry about Taysom Hill, which is lovely. I mean, one guy that we don't got to worry about ever thinking about for at least a little bit. So to me, the Saints are extremely undervalued. They're pretty much free in drafts everywhere. I mean, I love taking Tyler Shough as my 3rd quarterback in builds. I don't see there being any downside to it. What if it's like Bo Nix was one of my highest owned quarterbacks last year? And it's not really because I love Bo Nix, because I really didn't love him that much coming out of college. But you're getting a starting quarterback that has, potential that late as a 3rd QB, and if he pans out, I mean, it makes too much sense.
I'm looking at a bit of a receiver run. I mean, we got three tight ends off the board when we took Engram there and Kincaid and Tyler Warren, and then you've got like the not so fun running backs to take, like the David Montgomerys, Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy I wanted some shares of, so I was kind of clicking on him for a bit, especially like those late RB or zero RB type of builds, him and Brian Robinson, at least they offer you like an RB1 and a good offense, at least for a portion of the season. I would, that's kind of how I position it. But it gets pretty ugly. Where are you on Jaylen Warren versus Kaleb Johnson?
Jaylen Warren would be my preferred. Honestly, I don't think there's going to be many Pittsburgh Steelers that are going to make my roster this year. I just don't see a path where Aaron Rodgers is in a disaster. I mean, you saw it last year with him, which in my opinion, a much more talented group around him. You got a terrible offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. You got DK Metcalf, who I love, but does he run exact, precise routes like Devontae Adams does? No, he's more of a freelancer. He's more of a deep threat. He's more of a throw it up type of guy. Yeah, I know Rodgers likes doing that, but Rodgers has no more mobility. There's no more, getting out of the pocket and making the big plays like he used to when he was younger. So, Jaylen Warren will be my preferred guy just because, I could see some dump offs. I just think he's a better player than Kaleb Johnson. But, Arthur Smith, we know is going to run the ball. And me and you could be running the ball for the Steelers over those two for all we know. Because we've seen Arthur Smith do it over the year with Cordarrelle Patterson and just a bunch of other guys who, were nightmares to fantasy owners. So I don't know if I'll have many Steelers. I mean, I liked Freiermuth before the Johnny Smith trade, but to me, it's like, I don't know how you get excited about anybody on the team outside of DK Metcalf, he should get a ton of targets, but the wide receiver too, like Roman Wilson, I like him, but Arthur Smith has never developed a wide receiver two in any offense he's ever done. So, yeah, I'm probably out on most Steelers. I'll mix in some Kaleb Johnson, I'll mix in some Jaylen Warrens because just like you, we do volume, so you don't want to get crazy and miss out on guys. But yeah, it'll be Warren slightly over Johnson, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those where the Steelers, I could see last year, they came out of the gate firing with, because nobody really knew what that offense would look like, how Russ would look. Then they would have Fields in there. So it's kind of like they kept defenses on their toes. I could see Rodgers maybe coming out, having a good game or two. I don't remember how their season starts schedule-wise, but it's not one that is easy to click on. And as much as I was a Kaleb Johnson fan coming into the rookie draft, I don't necessarily love the landing spot just because I have no idea what that offense looks like you talked about the coordinator. So it kind of, now I'm trying to add some Jaylen Warren to my bag just because I want to hedge, the Kaleb Johnsons that I drafted pre-NFL draft. So at least I've got, a bit of both. But it's definitely not, the Steelers are definitely not, a sexy stack that you're after this year when you're building some of these tournament builds.
No, I just don't see a path where they're going to hit many lineups when it actually counts to the end. I mean, there's obviously a world where, DK Metcalf could hit, but the rest of those guys, I don't, Pat Freiermuth to me is pretty much undraftable right now. And that sucks because I've always been a Freiermuth fan, but unless he gets moved at the in training camp, which is a possibility, probably unlikely, but still a possibility. I don't think I'll own many Steelers, and it's painful because I've always been a little bit of a Steelers fan when it comes to their players, but this year I think I'm going to take a pass on most.
So you've got some names in the queue here. Some guys I really like. Shakir's a guy I like. I think volume-wise, he should see that volume. Tucker Kraft was a guy I liked. He goes off the board to the LaPorta team. And, I think he took Shakir he wasn't getting past the 3 spot anyways because that guy's got Allen and Kincaid.
Josh Allen, yeah.
So I like Tyrone Tracy. I've been talking about how I think he is the RB1 in that offense. And I think,
agree.
He looked really good as a rookie. See, it's kind of like when you were talking about Daniel Jones earlier. The problem is that we've only seen him in New York. We haven't really seen him in an offense with a good offensive line, some good weapons all around him, more than just one dude type of thing. So that's where I think that I get a little excited about what it could do for the Colts weapons as a whole and that offense as a whole. And it's kind of the same with Tyrone Tracy. I feel like, he's getting an improvement at quarterback, right? He looked, like I said, he looked good as a rookie. So I only see an improvement. I don't see them necessarily taking volume away. I feel like he really earned that spot. And even when Singletary came back last year, he was still pretty much the man from what I can remember. And if you're looking at his numbers, so we're on the clock here. Tyrone Tracy is our RB2. I like that. And it's funny because the guy you put in the queue was the guy I was going to talk to you about. I like Jake Ferguson here as a tight end 2.
I agree. I think it makes a ton of sense with the build, and it gives us an option to go to Dak later if we want to pretty much close the room, which I always like doing. I mean, three QB builds make a ton of sense, and I understand, especially because you get later in the season and an injury happens, or one of these guys sit with something freak, hamstrings and things like that. It makes a ton of sense to get three builds, but when you get a Dak and a Burrow, it's hard to take a third guy. 'Cause, I mean, it just gives you. It all depends on who's there later, but it'd be nice to close a quarterback room with those two.
Yeah, Dak seems to be on the other end of the room. We can take Jake here. So Engram and Ferguson, I think, are two pretty solid top two tight ends. The nice thing with this format is that your second tight end can sit into or work his way into the flex spot with the tight end premium.
100%.
Especially seeing a guy like Kyle Pitts go right after and Kincaid, going 2 rounds ahead. Like, I feel really good about getting Jake Ferguson.
People are going to tell a story about Kyle Pitts again, and I just can't tell the story. I'm sorry. If he gets me, he gets me. But, I mean, where he's being drafted, I mean, in best ball, I'm not going to sit here and say I won't have 0. But I just don't see a path where he ever gets there. And, I mean, it's sad because he's a talented kid, one of the most talented tight end prospects coming out of the draft, and he has been nothing but a bum since he's been. And you can blame him on a lot of things, but he hasn't done much to warrant, man, he was up there, and I remember some of them drafts where he got up in the top 10, and even higher in some drafts. I think he went like 102, 103 when he was getting really hyped up in some drafts, and that was just insane.
I was gonna say I feel like he's kind of crept up, but I'm looking like in May he was going in the 10th round, so it's really just kind of one round that he's moved up. I feel like he was going later. Maybe that was earlier in the offseason.
I feel like he was definitely going later. Maybe I'm just crazy and losing my mind. I see so many of these that
I need fantasy mojo like IV'd into my veins,
Oh,
so
man. I don't know how people survive without it. Mojo is the pros versus Joes contest that he puts on it is second to none, but also, his site literally saves you so much time. I can't wait to get on here when I'm done and see how many Chase AJ Brown teams are, because my guess is there's probably maybe a handful.
I was going to ask you, do you ever, so I always joke that the only screens I have open, like apart from the ones that you see, obviously I've got the draft board, I've got the draft room open, I've got my little show sheet in front of me. And then the other screen that I have is the Fantasy Mojo BBT from July 18th to July 21st, the ADP. And then the top part is just my whole like studio that I'm recording on. So I don't really have much else open. Every once in a while, I'll go do a quick search on the X machine just to, if I'm not sure what the update is on a certain player's injury or a certain player's court situation or something like that. But otherwise, all I need is the ADP, man, and I'm good to go.
You're pretty much set. I mean, he pretty much gives you every tool that's out there to just kill fantasy football. And, it's an advantage that if you're playing against somebody who's just, jumping in a room or random room, I mean, you definitely have an advantage over them because, they're just staring mostly at these ADPs and they're missing, guys that, fall and values that, people like ourselves that have been drafting a million of these usually don't get a chance at, but they fall to them and you take them and you win cash. It's just how it works.
Speaking of cash, as we finish the 9th round here, we're going to go to our friends over at the FFPC for a quick word, and we'll be back for the last 11 rounds right after this.
This is the main event!
Main event draft
We're drafting
season.
a main event team on FFPC, $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
So welcome back, guys. We're starting the 10th round here. If you're not already on myffpc.com, make sure you use the promo code DRBaller, DRBALLER, and you'll get $25 off your first team. So this tournament, 125 buy-in, you'll get down to $100 to get in for your chance to win 300,000. 100,000 is if you play the $35 Superflex Best Ball Tournament that's on right now. And with the promo code, that'll get you in for $10. So make sure you use the code DRBaller if you're not already at myffpc.com. So we come into the 10th round. This time of year, you're not going to find too many, people that are out to lunch when it comes to drafting. Is there anything that kind of stands out right now as we look at these builds?
Nothing really stands out. I mean, obviously you're seeing the fall of Judkins with the questions surrounding him, like how many games is he going to get? What's going to come out of, that court, whether it's going to happen there. He hasn't signed yet. Obviously the second round stuff that's been going on, all those guys pretty much are back, so we're fine there. But the tight end run, I mean, this is like where you're getting the Crafts and then the Jokus and the Fergusons, the guys that I know you like and I like too. If you're waiting on tight end, it's a good spot to pick. And same thing with quarterback. I mean, 9th round Baker Mayfield, 9th round Bo Nix, 9th round Dak Prescott, 8th round Justin Fields, 9th round Brock Purdy, 10th round Kyler Murray. Like, it's really, really hard to click the top 5 guys unless you're stacking like we've done with Burrow. And obviously Chase Brown and Chase. So to me, it's the quarterback position. It's fun this year, and in best ball especially because you don't got to worry about clicking a button. In redraft, it's a little bit more tricky because let's just say you're taking a Bo Nix and Kyler Murray. It's not that easy to just click one every week. You're probably going to be wrong most of the time. You can play whatever matchup you want, but both are kind of the same quarterback in some regards when it comes to the rushing upside. Kyler's a little bit better, but Bo Nix is no slouch when it comes to that. So it's a little trickier and when you got to click the button, but in best ball, it's really, really hard to, unless you're building a stack, which most of the time with Lamar and Josh Allen and pretty much Jaden Daniels, unless you're getting Terry McLaurin, it's Hurts or Burrow, and where they're going in drafts, it's just 5th round Jalen Hurts is awesome because if it works out where they throw the ball more, watch out because all those guys are, Devonta Smith was a 2nd round pick last year. AJ Brown was a 1st round pick last year. Jalen Hurts was the 1st or 2nd quarterback off every board last year. Now look where they were being drafted. Is it recency bias or is it going to be a Saquon Barkley show again?
We're on the clock here. I see you've added 3 running backs. I don't mind any of them. I like Charbonnet because we only have 2 right now. I feel like he's pretty solid.
I like the guy you put in on the way back. Let me just see who the first guy has.
I mean, he could take him here, but he could also go Kaleb or Goff.
So I'm fine.
Oh, he's got DJ Moore and Odunze, so he's probably going to go Caleb Williams. I like that. I find Charbonnet is a guy I get more often than not. Benson is the guy I find hard because it's either I have the opportunity to take him earlier than I probably should, and then he's gone by the time he gets to me later on.
To me, May's the pick. I agree with you.
Yeah, I like that Burrow, Drake May upside. And for me, I'm good with the 2 quarterbacks at this point. We don't even...
Yeah, and we can build May stuff all around late.
Totally.
Hannah Henry, Kyle Williams. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that we can go and mix in there that really won't hurt us in any way based off roster construction because they're all cheap.
That's what's nice about Drake May is, some of these guys like McCarthy, or Kyler Murray, you already have the weapons that you want to stack them with if you have them. If you don't, you're taking the 3rd receiver or the, kind of the second, third running back, that kind of thing. Whereas with Drake May, you can grab a few options as you go down the board here.
I 1,000% agree with you. That team 1 is betting pretty big on Ben Johnson. I like the Bears. I feel like they're a popular team. It's going to take the next step. I get all that. But I feel like the only negative, honestly, I don't mind his team, all things considered. He needs to add in some receivers here because Pearsall as their wide receiver 3 is a question. But the running back room, really nice. The quarterback room, really nice. The tight end room, really nice. But the only problem with that is I feel like you have too many Bears. Yeah, they could all hit. It's all possible. But you're probably only get one of them 3 guys that are going to hit, that are going to pay off. I think it's going to be DJ Moore. I think it's going to be Loveland. I think Odunze is going to be the one that's going to be left out. But you're betting a lot on the Bears. And, with his roster construction, I feel like he can do that. But, if I'm him, I don't think I'm taking another position that's not a receiver.
Well, especially even on a weekly basis, you're capping your upside because the chances, this isn't Detroit who's going to score 50 points, a week. This is their first year in this offense. That's what... Another thing
also,
I think people...
They play outdoors.
They play outdoors. That's a very valid point. Very valid point. They play outdoors. Loveland's coming in as a rookie, fresh off of an injury. There's so many ways that this story does not produce for top players at the position from the Bears on a weekly basis. So I agree with you in the sense that, I like that you're optimistic about the offense, but I don't know that I would put 4 of them in the first 11 rounds. I think that's probably the bigger problem.
It's really, really risky, and I'm not saying that, hey, it could pan out and this guy could be, run this league over 10 times over if the Bears all hit, because the rest of that team is really good. Obviously, the questions in the rookie running backs, but Marion Hampton, RJ Harvey, if they hit, it's going to be tough to beat that team if the Bears do hit, but it's a big risk because if they don't, you only have 3 receivers as of right now. You're betting on Ricky Pearsall, who can't get on the field. That's where the issue comes in, is if the Bears hit, this team's probably going to advance. But if they don't, it's just drawn dead because the receiving room is just a disaster right now.
How do you feel about him getting the Bijan? Like for me, and again, it's not like a mistake per se. It's just my brain, the way I build teams and where I'm looking, depending on where I land on the draft board. If I'm going to force the Bijan pick as the 1 and, pass on a chase, I don't know that I'm going to come back and smash green 3 more times from that 1 spot. I'm going to anchor with my Bijan, and then I'm going to smash receiver, at least 3 of the next 5 picks.
I agree. It's not something I would do either. I think he kind of got away with it, all things considered. He definitely took a risk, and like I said, if the Bears hit, it's going to be great for him. But it's a wild, wild risk to be behind the 8 ball at the receiver position. It's just so hard. We see it every year. The guys who hit the lineups at the end of the year, the T. Higgins last year, obviously we've seen Kamara in his 7 touchdowns and all that good stuff. But if you have a weak receiver room, it's really, really hard to catch up because, you're betting on a weekly upside of both Bears guys hitting and Ricky Pearsall staying on the field. And if the Bears put up 10 points, you're going to be so far behind the receiver position, it's going to put you in a position where, even if they do hit, it's going to be so hard to come back.
So we've got, after 11, we've got 2 quarterbacks in Joe Burrow, Drake May. We've got Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, Zach Charbonnet. The receiver room with Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Tet McMillan, Chris Olave, and then we've got Evan Engram, Jake Ferguson. Pretty even across the board with the positions, pretty content with all of it, to be honest. I feel like we're at a point now where it's just a matter of what kind of value, what kind of depth we want to add at each position, what kind of stackable pieces fall to us, and then if any value at all falls. But to me, it's kind of we don't necessarily have a way that we have to, we're not chasing any positions at this point.
Yeah, that's one good thing about the draft. I know we were both a little bit not worried, but we were preferring being at the other side of the draft board. But it's worked out as well as it could, getting AJ Brown falling where he did, getting Chase Brown, and then just building the rooms. And both tight ends, obviously, with Engram, Ferguson, we could stop the room if we wanted to. We're probably going to add one guy, a little later. But I feel like it gives us a ton of upside. We pretty much can take anybody. Outside of quarterback, which we've probably done, maybe a Tyler Shough later if we don't like what's on the board. But besides that, running backs, I guess you could say, is our weakness. So, we're probably going to pound a couple of those here. There's a lot of receivers that are out here that, have some upside too that I also like. But the board is pretty much whatever we want it to be right now, and that's what I like. Not having to, be stuck in a range where we're taking somebody that, we really don't want to just because we have to.
Yeah, I feel like when you get 2 pretty solid quarterbacks like, Burrow and then a Drake May as your QB2, I feel like sometimes the QB3 is forced in to those builds. For me, it's like if there's a guy that goes undrafted or he's, like a Jackson Dart is still there, like in the 20th round or, like that kind of thing. You talked about Shough. He's another guy that can fall. I don't know what's going to happen now with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson now that we get this Anthony Richardson update saying that he's, been throwing for 3 weeks and he's, back basically from his injuries. They're going to slowly get him more and more involved in the, the training camp and with volume wise. Who knows how it affects it? I think they're probably going to go close to each other. I know, looking at this board, they're both going around the 16th round. But for me, that third quarterback, when you've got 2 pretty decent guys in the top 10 or 11 rounds, it's really if someone falls and I'm like, holy shit, this guy's still here. Maybe I'll get him just because usually those last 2-3 rounds are not necessarily players that will even produce, for you that often during the season.
1,000%. I mean, like you said, like sometimes you feel like you forced and you have to do it, and it's something that I really would have liked Trey Benson there.
Yeah, I was hoping Benson would fall to us there. I like the Davis. I like Davis here. I also like Trey Harris with the upside he offers. I like Jaylen Wright actually quite a bit here. And then
Jaylen Wright as much as I can.
Yeah, I feel like as an RB4 with the build that we have right now, I really like it. Now, just question, because you talked about that Chicago stack, would you not take Gesicki in the build that we have right now because we already have Chase and Brown?
I think I would take one of the running back, I think Ray Davis or Trey Harris would be my pick over Gesicki. Not that I don't like Gesicki, but I just feel like those two guys hit the lineup better than Gesicki will. I don't really see a path unless T. Higgins gets hurt that Gesicki gets there. And I think there's, if you want to.
No, you know what? It's not necessarily that it's more just the theory, build theory. I'm good with Ray Davis here.
I think Ray Davis makes the most sense.
Yeah, I like Ray Davis. I like the fact that we got both him and Wright because we were kind of contemplating with that last pick. So I like getting
the running back room. I would say is our weak spot, and then like there's a ton of receivers that are coming up here soon that I like a lot. I mean, Aaron Rodgers there is a terrible pick. I'm sorry. I know.
And that's what I meant. That's what I meant with Terp with regards to that third quarterback being forced in. You have Josh Allen. Why did you take Josh Allen if you were going to take Penix and then 3 rounds later, Rodgers? You were fine with just Penix?
Yeah, stop at Penix.
You don't need Rodgers.
I mean, just to fill out a stack when is that stack? If that stack hits your lineup, you're losing.
Like you would have been better off not taking Allen and then going Penix, Rodgers, and then a Shough or like a Dart or something. And then really.
That would make sense. He has two. I didn't even notice this. He has 2 receivers on his team. This team's drawing dead. Keon Coleman's the second receiver.
Agreed. So one thing you touched on with regards to our running backs being maybe one of the weaker points in our build. Usually, if that's the case, that's kind of why I like Ray Davis here, because if I start a bit later with my running backs, either I'm doing like a 0 RB build or a hero RB build, I'll fill the depth of my running back room earlier. And then we already have 4 strong receivers in Chase, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Tet, and Chris Olave. Like for me, those are solid top 4. So we can afford to just take swings on flyers, for the next 6-7 rounds. So that's kind of why I like going back to back Wright and Davis there. I think that it really solidifies.
The problem is it really, running back position really dries up. I mean, I know there's a lot
of
guys
does.
That like it, but there's a lot of questions on some of these guys who are going to be drafted in the next couple of rounds. And it's just like, I don't know, like, are they really like guys that you think they're ever going to hit your lineup? Like things like that. Like, again, this isn't a redraft league where you can just cut them if they stink. You need these guys that, have some serviceable weeks to where they hit your lineup. And as you get, down the road a little bit and you're looking at, Jerome Ford, the Judkins stuff is out there, Kareem Hunt, like, let's go down this list and look at Miles Sanders. Like, they could also be cut. Woody, then you go with these rookies, Woody Marks, like Kendre Miller, Devin Neal. Like, that's not people that Keaton Mitchell. Like, there's just too many questions with all those guys that I'm glad that we went back to back there and didn't get cute. Not that Gesicki wouldn't have made sense. There's still an outside chance he comes back, probably unlikely, but if he does, that's great. But I just feel like based on our roster construction, if we didn't take Ray Davis there, we would have made a mistake. Probably the first mistake that we've made so far.
Yeah, the question with Gesicki was more just because you were commenting on Chicago and him having too many. So I was thinking, like, would you pass on Gesicki here? I agree with you that the running back
with our roster construction, I don't think it's the same because, like, this guy's betting on the Bears to fill out 2 positions. He's betting on more in Adunze hitting. Like, they have to be studs for him to pan out
each week, which is crazy.
Yeah, each week. Like, we have Chase, we have Brown, we have McMillan, we have Olave. We have a Ferguson that can hit the lineup, and then obviously the running backs that just, we just drafted all could hit our lineup. So taking a Gesicki does not feel the same to me.
You were talking about some of these later running backs. For me, again, just talking roster construction, those guys are great if you started robust RB or you started early RB. When you talk about the Taj Brooks, the Woody Marks, like those kind of guys, those like home, you're taking like a full swing, trying to hit a home run, or you're striking out type of thing. That's when those are, but if you can get like the Guarendos, the Davis, the Wrights, the Trey Benson, where you have an idea what these guys are capable of, where they fit into their offense. You know what I mean? Like we've seen Davis put up 150 plus yards, in that offense. We see what Wright can do, especially now that they've got more room in that backfield. You see Jonnu gone, so there's a little more room for him to build a role in that offense. Whereas some of these guys later on, you don't want them as your RB 3, 4, or 5s, in my opinion. If you're not building that robust RB build.
I couldn't agree with you more. Here's a fun thing to look at. Usually you don't see these. I know me and you, we live by stacks, and 99% of my drafts are going to have somehow, some stackability in there, because I feel like that's the ceiling that you need to win it. But if you look at all these teams, Team 1 got the stack easy. Us got the stack pretty easy. Team 3 is a disaster. Team 4, nothing. Team 5, a Tucker Craft, Jordan Love stack. Jared Goff with LaPorta makes a ton of sense. Team 6 gambled a quarterback and got burned. Jeez, Bryce Young as your only quarterback is not a recipe for success. Team 7, Team 7, you got McCarthy, Hockenson, and Jefferson. Also Fields and Garrett Wilson. Then Dak with CD, and then you got Mahomes obviously with Kelce and Rashee Rice. Also with Pacheco as a secondary type of thing. Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton, Kyler Murray with Trey McBride.
Everyone's staying in their lane. Nobody's trying to get cute. Nobody's like trying to steal.
Jaden Daniels with Ertz. It's a little more tricky with Jaden Daniels. But then the Lamar team gets Andrews, gets Likely, gets Bateman, who they didn't take, Zay Flowers. So I mean, everybody's staying in their lane, which is something you never see in these drafts.
So when I was on with Balky, I think was it last week? I did a couple hours on Balky's show. Yeah. And he asked me that. He's like, do you ever look at your opponent's teams, like when you're picking? For me, it's like if I'm dead tied between a couple of guys or 2-3 guys, and there's like no other tie break, and it involves like me sniping my neighbor, I don't know about you. Do you is that something you look at? Personally, I just look at my own team when I'm drafting.
I don't look at anybody else's team besides my own. The only way that I would look at somebody else's team to try to
see what's coming back.
Decisions on like we did a couple times with Team 1.
Yes.
Betting on Burrow and Hurts type of situation. Obviously, it was a guarantee, but it's not something. Mike Gesicki doesn't come back. That's okay. That's not.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cry.
But that's kind of why I like the 2, like the 2 and the 3, or like the 10, 11, because you can play that, let's take this guy first because the 12 spot or the 1 spot is probably not going to take this guy, or, you can kind of play that game really nicely from the 2, 3 or the 10, 11.
That is the reason why I do like those picks, because like you can kind of, play a little Russian roulette and know most of the time who's going to come back if you basing it off, especially like when teams make it easy on you, like Team 1, taking 4 running backs in a row. You can, if you're deciding on a receiver or running back, you should always take the receiver, because a running back, he has 4 of them already, so he's probably not taking 1. We're on the clock. I think Kyle Williams makes the most.
I was just gonna I'm looking at where he is on the Mojo ADP. That's what I was gonna say. I say we take Kyle here for sure. Get the stack going with Drake May, and I don't hate the I like Tillman. I like Tillman a lot. He's one of my favorite receivers all off season. Even last week when we had Coupon, I said he's one of my favorite late round guys. But I feel like Theo Johnson might fit in really nicely with Tyrone Tracy, and as our third tight end. I feel like Theo Johnson's a guy that people are sleeping on, again, because it's the Giants. They really leaned on him last year.
He just got hurt.
He got hurt, but when they were down the stretch and they were kind of trying to move the ball up the field quickly, he was a guy I really liked. I like the Braylon Allen. He was the third guy I was going to say that I like in this with our build, but I don't mind locking up our tight ends. Right now, for me, the tight end room is like perfect. We don't need to do anything else.
Quarterback room's done. We're pretty much wide receiver, running back.
Yes.
Probably receivers at this point, but
yeah,
still
agreed.
Running backs here, that makes sense.
Agreed, 100%. We throw one more running back in there that we both like on the way down, but it's mostly receivers that we're trying to add to this build so far.
1,000%, and there's plenty of receivers here that make a ton of sense that or a little cheaper that people might not see, and guys that make a ton of sense with the build, because they're not always the sexiest names. Especially, it's one mistake that I don't know about you, but I've made over the years, is when you get to these later rounds, you're taking a lot of dart throws. Like, when I say dart throws, I mean the young rookie, the potential there, but you're missing on guys who are like the Adam Thielens of the world.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not sexy, they're not crazy, but if they hit your lineup a bunch of times, 4 or 5 times, your advantage over everybody else is going to be massive when they're gambling on guys like Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson and Pat Bryant. Like, I like Pat Bryant, I like him as a prospect, but like, you could easily find a path where he doesn't ever see the field.
100%. Especially if Mims and Engram both come in and solidify in that offense, and Sutton still, continues to be the alpha, you could easily see Pat Bryant not necessarily being needed and just, taking a year to learn behind a guy like Sutton. I don't mind double tapping the same receiving room, like the same NFL team when it comes to receiver, but later on in the draft. So like with our build, because we have Drake May, I wouldn't shy away from taking the Demario Douglas if he fell to us, because then between him and Williams, you got to think that they should fill one receiving core. We're not depending on it, but they could easily give you like a wide receiver 3 production the whole season, that combined.
Yeah, one of those guys hit our lineup almost every week. That's a win, all things considered.
100%.
A 14th and potential 16th round draft pick. I mean, I 100% agree with you, because it's not costing you a lot. When you look at some of these guys that are going down here, I mean, the running back and the receiver rooms, it's going to start getting ugly here. You're taking a lot of guys who are, hopes and dreams and hoping they hit your lineup. But there's also a lot of guys down here that will, be potential. Like, we'll talk about, our receiver room. Like, is there a world where we take the, a receiver on the Bengals, as a total like flyer in like 20th round that could fall?
Totally can.
I totally can. I'm saying is there a world where Jermaine Burton like becomes like he actually cares about football? I'm not saying I would take Jermaine Burton, but I'm just saying like something like that makes sense because it's building in with your build. It's making sense with Burrow. Like, if you're just taking a flyer on
Keyshawn Butte,
Keyshawn Butte or Jalen Tolbert or Devon Valet or Josh Reynolds.
That's who I was trying to think about. Valet was the guy I was thinking about might step ahead of Bryant there.
Roman Wilson, Dontavian Wicks, like, it's just gross. Like, it's just there's no exciting. There's if they hit your lineup, of course you're a guru, but most of the time they got a better chance of being cut than actually hitting your lineup.
I find whenever I look back at my teams that have done really well in big tournaments, it's usually because you smashed on most of your early guys and you had 1 or 2 guys in the mid to later rounds that produced above ADP. It's rare that you don't hit on your top guys and then you're relying on a lot of those late round guys to fill in your weeks. When I look back at teams that went far in tournaments.
100% agree. I 100% agree with everything you just said.
So Shipley's a guy I like taking a lot. I feel like people are just, I don't know what it is, to be honest. Like, I think, like, is he not sexy? Is it because he's a white dude, in the offense? Like, I have no idea what it is, but they literally brought no one in behind a guy who
the corpse of AJ Dillon.
Except for AJ Dillon, who, as I told Balky, I've got a whole drawer of AJ Dillon like signed autos, that are worth absolutely nothing right now. But
makes sense.
I just feel like Shipley, and he looked good in the playoffs against, I think it was in the Washington game where he produced. Yeah. I just feel like when you talk about handcuffs, look at the guys that are going around him. Like, actually, he's moved up a bit. Right now, he's in the 15th round, but he was going he was basically free at one point. Yeah,
he was free. And I don't understand why he was free, all things considered, because, like you said, like, he does have juice. Like, like I said last night on Pro versus Joe's, the only negative with Will Shipley is if you see like if he doesn't progress early in the season or early in the preseason training camp, and AJ Dillon's is a complete corpse, there's a chance that they bring in another running back to just pretty much prove that Will Shipley's not the guy. That's my only fear with Shipley. Because if he's the running back 2 going into the season, he's one of the best values in fantasy football. That's just my opinion. Because I never wish injuries on anybody, and especially my team. But if anything were to happen to Saquon Barkley, you're talking about a potential league winner.
And it's one of those things where it's like we talk about these builds, right? Like that team is strong everywhere in that offense. So for them to bring in Shipley, he would it'd be hard for him not to produce, and not for him not to fit in, especially after a season under his belt, a Super Bowl season at that.
I agree. 100%. There's no way they can give him the same workload they did last year. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but I just don't see that being the case. New offensive coordinator, guy with something to prove. The offensive line's the best in football. The receiving core, to me, is top 1, 2, 3 in football. They have a pretty solid tight end. Obviously, Hurts is one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Their schedule's a lot tougher, so they're going to have to score more. So, the game scripts that were perfect last year for Saquon Barkley might not be there this year. So, to me, Shipley, like you said, one of the best picks in the draft right now. Somebody just took Darren Waller. They must have missed the news that he went. I'm sorry. If Darren Waller, like certain guys, like I don't care what Darren Waller. If he beats me, he beats me. Like I don't see it.
So this is how Darren Waller fits into my fantasy life. Is I have a dynasty team that Harry Snowman wanted me to help him with, and it's like a total teardown. So I use some of our FOB to get Darren Waller so that I can hopefully trade him for like a third or even a fourth round. But like that's the only reason I'm taking Darren Waller anywhere, and it's because it's like July. You know what I mean? There's no one else on the waiver wire. Right now we are, what is this, round 16, 17. So Douglas goes around here. McMillan, I like. He's kind of undervalued in my opinion, Jaylen McMillan.
I agree.
So I don't mind clicking him here as some receiving depth, and we can even come back with Douglas, or we can take a depth RB piece as well. Yeah, McMillan's a guy I feel like in Dynasty right now, if you can go trade for him, everybody's worried about, like everyone's thinking about Igboku and, Evans, and I feel like McMillan is... I mean, it probably would have been better before the Godwin news, but I just feel like he's nothing right now. People are just throwing him into trades.
I mean, it just really comes down to we just take Demario Douglas. It makes a ton of sense for our build, or do we end the running back room potentially with
Rashad Smith?
Should be safe.
I don't mind that at all because we did go McMillan. For me, like it was either McMillan or Douglas. I don't know that we need both there. Whereas Smith offers like that sneaky upside in like a very top heavy Chase Brown, and then like some depth RBs, you know what I mean? With trying to fill in basically our RB2 room. Whereas Brashard is kind of that, like I talked about earlier, that swing and a miss type of pick, like he's either going to be nothing or he's going to be legit and service you for a few weeks this year in that KC offense.
This eventually is going to go live, so people are going to hear this, and I'm pretty outspoken on drafts that I see that are terrible. I don't think I've seen a worse draft in Team 3. You have 1, 2, 3, 5 Pittsburgh Steelers through 17 rounds. If you're betting on Aaron Rodgers, I guess you could bet on worse, but Aaron Rodgers, Calvin Austin, Freiermuth, Metcalf, Caleb Johnson, like that is a disaster, like complete disaster. Like thanks for the $125 because, hey, I don't see there being any path where you get there.
Which is kind of what you like to see, when you're drafting these tournaments. You want to see dead money in the room.
You want to see dead money, and hey, anything can happen. Anybody can win with any build. Like we see it all the time. Like there was a crazy room I was in last week where somebody took 4 tight ends in the first 5 picks. Do I think that's realistic? No. But can they win? Absolutely. If those tight ends are 4 of the top 5 tight ends, they're probably getting there. But I mean, some of these builds, like we all been in rooms. I forget the guy's name. I'm sure you remember it. He just drafts running backs. He drafts like 2 receivers. It might be this guy for all we know. But he doesn't draft any receivers. He drafts like 4 receivers on his whole team and just drafts like 17 running backs. And I'm sure there's been teams that he's had that's made it, but not I could never, ever. Number one, I wouldn't take 5 guys on any roster, let alone the Pittsburgh Steelers, which to me, you can probably make a fight that they're the worst. They're the worst team to draft this year in fantasy football.
All right, here's a dynasty trade that just went through in a 250 triflex that I'm in. So one guy sent Wan'Dale Robinson and Judkins for a 2026 first and a 2026 fourth. I feel like I don't mind selling Wan'Dale and Judkins for a first right now because the uncertainty, but it might also be buying on the cheap. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it might be buying on the cheap because there's so much uncertainty that comes with it, but I don't. It's just risky right now because there's still so much unknown. And if it's bad, like, how do we not know this isn't a Ray Rice type of situation? He hasn't signed yet. He has no guaranteed contract. A team might just be like, you know what? We don't want to be involved in this.
Thing is, we don't know anything about it, right? And that's why
that's exactly what it is.
I feel like when you make a move like that, you're basically telling people like you know more than them or you have a better idea of what's happening. And that could really, really burn you. I mean, that's a first round pick that you're sending. To me, in these situations, I've learned the hard way to just, sit tight. You're better off paying a bit more when you know that he's actually either coming back or not, or you have a bit more clarity on the situation than trying to guess and send your 2026 first for, you know, like a wide receiver 5 in Wan'Dale Robinson. And, you know, who knows right now what Judkins is, and, you know, by week 6 to week 8, and even in the season.
1,000%. You can't say it any better myself. I mean, and the Browns, I said this on the other night, the Browns have a lot of guys that could be really, really good fantasy-wise. But there's so much questions with who's playing quarterback. Like, I love Judy. I love Njoku. I love Tillman. The running back room, I like Judkins a lot before all this happened. I don't really like it. Sampson, I'm okay with, you know, but, you know, the opportunity's there, so you almost have to take some shots on him now. I don't think I'll ever draft Jerome Ford. I mean, if he gets there, he gets there. That's fine, but he's just not a guy that's ever going to be exciting for me.
I almost think like sell the news right now with regards to Jerome Ford. You know, now's the time to kind of move him in Dynasty if you have him.
We have a team that we can be afforded some shots. I would say if we have 3 rounds left, we literally can go anything. I don't know about you, but I've been drafting probably maybe too much, but Ben Sinnott is a name. We're down here in the tight end room. Like, there's probably nobody here that we really get excited about. They're all pretty much dust at this point, but like, do we need it? No, but if something happens to Zach Ertz, I mean, we could be talking about a money printer.
So the way we built our team, and that's what I was saying earlier, depending on how you built your team, by the time you get to the last like 3 to 4 rounds, you're either looking for depth and to balance out your roster, which we don't need that right now. So really, for me, it's kind of what you mentioned. For me, we're just swinging for home runs right now. That's basically all we're doing. Who has the potential to give us like a huge hit, and if he hits, give us like a ceiling. So you're usually looking at rookies. You're usually looking at guys that maybe have changed teams, changed offenses, or you're looking at rookies that didn't hit, or second-year players that didn't hit as a rookie. You know, and Ben Sinnott is perfect when it comes to that kind of description, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. You said it perfectly when it comes to building the roster. Sometimes at the end of these drafts, you're catching up. You're playing a little catch-up, like Team 6. They're just playing.
I was going to ask you about that team, how you feel, because he went for the first 9 round. They went yellow and green, and then they went like 5.
Which is fine. But like, I don't even love like one of those like Cooper Kupp. Like, I don't see a path where he gets there. Like, I'm not the biggest. I don't click Alvin Kamara that much. But in the tight end room, like, yeah, you got 5 guys, but like Hunter Henry's probably more on the clock. I could go with any of those receivers and be perfectly okay with it, or take Ben Sinnott.
Yeah, I mean, none of them really play like stack wise or anything like that. So it's really like, who do you want to take a swing on? For me, Alec Pierce plays better if Richardson plays.
Correct. Yep.
I am Minor can definitely be a sleeper this year. I feel like, again, with the opening in that, you know, with a rookie quarterback coming in.
I think he's the pick. I agree with you.
Yeah, I feel like he's like, you had Lockett in there, and Lockett could come in and just be, you know, washed up and just a dud, or he could be like a Steve Smith type of thing where he comes in and for whatever reason the rookie quarterback,
that veteran guy that
that leans on.
Back on the clock.
So I'm good with either Noel or Sinnott. I don't mind either. Let me just see who else is in there.
Is there anybody else that's jumping at you?
Like Coker, but we already have Tet, so I don't know that we necessarily need to lean into that offense, because we're basically telling the story that Tet is going to crush.
I agree. Let's take Noel.
He's a guy I actually click pretty often. I feel like people are really into Higgins, which I get.
Everybody's betting on Higgins. Everybody's betting on, Christian Kirk, and nobody's even taking a chance on Noel. So I agree with you there. And where he's being drafted, he's pretty much ignored in draft.
Well, I mean, Dave, we saw this last year, like last season, we saw the Houston receiver room just implode. You know what I mean? When you talk injuries with Diggs, Tank Dell. That's it, man.
2 brain farts. Tank Dell was my highest known players drafted 2 years ago when he
that was sad.
Injury, and he's never been the same since.
That was sad, dude. I don't know that he ever comes back the same. You know what I mean? After that,
no,
that was
sad.
That was a horrible injury. I rember seeing Stroud like just in tears watching him.
I mean,
so Devin Neal, I like, because we do have we have Olave. Devin Neal's a guy I like taking late. Jordan James, any 49ers running back. I learned that a few years ago with Shanahan there. You can never go wrong taking a San Fran running back.
They're always going to hit your lineup somehow, unless they're just total bums.
Well, just the nature of that offense as a running back, there's a higher chance of you getting injured, just the way they use them. And when they are producing, they're producing really well. So that's kind of what I learned about the San Fran backfield. So that's a backfield I like going to. Sean Tucker had that huge game last year.
Rashad White gets dealt. Like, you don't know.
Maybe, yeah, actually, that's very valid. I don't even hate, like, if I had no one else, I don't even hate throwing a dart at Keyshawn Butte just because we didn't take the Douglas. No, I like doing things like that, grabbing like a receiver from a quarterback that I've built around as a last pick. Because Andrew Cooper and I were talking, he brought up Tutu Atwell, like if you're building a Stafford LA Rams, like as a last pick.
What about Elijah Moore? Was that tickle you?
He's a guy that I draft very often.
I
don't know how he hasn't moved up draft boards, to be honest, like at all.
I know. I draft him a ton. I mean, obviously, there's a world where it doesn't work out in training camp and he gets cut. Like he doesn't. But
the upside. I mean, he was producing decent in the New York with the disaster of the Jets.
Last year, he was producing with the Browns.
And with the Browns, that's right. That's right. I mean, no, you know what? If we're both kind of excited about Elijah Moore, I don't mind him as our last pick for sure.
I take Elijah Moore in almost every draft. I'm
a sucker. And we have Davis. Yeah, I say we take Moore if he falls to us. I like that. I can't understand why he's not moving up. Like for me, he should be not far behind, if not even to Palmer.
I 1,000% agree. I don't know exactly what, Josh Palmer, who I like, but it's.
Like, why is Palmer going in the 17th round and you can get Elijah Moore 4 rounds later? I don't get it. 3 rounds later.
I 100% agree.
All right, so I'll read out the roster before we make our last pick here. So we've got Joe Burrow and Drake May in our QB room. We've got Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, Zach Charbonnet, Jaylen Wright, Ray Davis, Brashard Smith in the running back room. Our receivers are Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Tetaroa McMillan, Chris Olave, Kyle Williams, Jalen McMillan, Eric Ayamanor, fellow Canadian, Jalen Knoll, and then our tight ends, Evan Engram, Jake Ferguson, and Theo Johnson. So we've got like obviously the Cincinnati stack, the New England stack going. We've got a bit of a New York Giants stack, a bit of a Buffalo stack if we can get this last pick.
Like certain guys, like you see, like the Chase AJ Brown, Chase Brown start, that really gets me tanked up.
When you get AJ Brown as your second receiver, you're doing all right.
Yeah, with Jamar Chase.
With Jamar Chase and Chase Brown.
Yeah, with what never ever happens in these. I mean, it's pretty hard not to love what we've done. I mean, there's not a pick that I can honestly say that I'm like upset about. All things considered, like we need the Chase Brown to be exactly what he was last year, and the running back room to just fill out. Everywhere else, I think we're stacked.
No, this is a good build. So Elijah Moore does not make it to us. We can either go Yesivas, we can go running back, or we can go like a Butte for the New England stack.
I say Sean Tucker or Butte. Yeah, I can go with Devin Neal too. We can go James. It's the 20th round. You can literally tell me anybody and I'll click them right now.
Why don't we go Dave Neal just because we kind of have that New Orleans with Chris Olave.
Let's do it, man. I'm with it.
All right, done.
We're done.
All right, man. Dude, this was a blast. It's one of those where as soon as I got back, you're the first guy I thought of one of the first guys I thought of where I was like, I got to do a draft with Dave, man, for sure. So I appreciate you joining, man.
Before the season ends, definitely.
No, we definitely will. I know you have to run because you're doing Pros versus Joes.
At 10 o'clock tonight. So
for sure, give the peeps a quick reminder where they can find you, and then I'll let you run off, man.
Dave Terp, pretty simple on the X. Keep it simple. Talk a lot of trash. Nothing but love. Let's do it.
Appreciate you, Dave. I'm JD, the Draft Room Baller. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back next week after actually Dan and I are back for GOAT District. Back-to-back nights on Monday and Tuesday. We've got Abib, the back-to-back champ from the FFPC streets, and First and 15. And we've got Mike Shopes, the 29th of July on the Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Appreciate you guys, and we'll check you all later.
See you guys.